up, everyone? Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right. It's Jake Ciely.
Opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
Who is that guy?
Your mama. You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in fantasy. Please of the range.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No. Burn.
Game on, you ducks. It is All in Fantasy. It is week 10 rankings with Chris Meaney at Chris Meaney and everything greatness of the goodness of the wonderfulness of hockey that is going on. Mostly because my Rangers are playing well. I'm just kind of, and now I've already started thinking trade. You want to talk about NHL or NFL and then like baseball free agency? Of course, I'm interested in the Mets, but like I'm already like looking ahead to the NHL trade deadline and like, ooh, what piece could the Rangers get? Like that's how excited I am. I'm putting money aside, hopefully, to be able to go to the Stanley Cup Finals this year, Chris Meaney. Would you come down? Would you come with me? Would you go to that game?
Oh man, MSG's on my bucket list. I can't believe I've never been. I've been to like about half of the arenas across the league, and it's the building you have to go to, right? The most famous building in the world. So yeah, I would. I think your Rangers are going to be aggressive. They're probably just like 1 or 2 moves away from actually getting this thing done. So it should be an exciting time for you.
Yeah, it is an exciting time for me. And hey, look at this. It's an exciting time for some of the teams after there were some deals at the trade deadline. What a surprise. According to the report, the Giants had a deal to trade Ujulari and then didn't get it in on time. What a shocker, this organization. Although the funny thing is I actually made an apology. I was like, you know what? Joe Sheen seems to be taking over. Now, the Daniel Jones recontract up situation is a terrible move, but everything else has actually been pretty good as they continue to reshape this roster. So I'm not going to completely come for them, but we will talk about them in a second because they're in London, baby, against the Panthers. Oh, no, wait. That's Germany. No, they're in Germany, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Completely different country.
Yes.
Much angrier people, I'm assuming, not because they're Germans, but because they get that game instead of what they could have had. They get two of the worst teams. Yes. This is a potentially first pick in play game is what you get. Germany, congratulations. They're
really
going to go drive your
sport.
cars instead. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Really showing off the brand of the NFL. So, yeah, rough go. Really see neighbors, I suppose.
Yeah. Although Daniel Jones hasn't been doing a whole lot with neighbors since those first 2 games or 3 games. So there you go. Like, what a shock there. Anyway, real quick, Thursday Night Football. I do want to talk about this because it is trade deadline related. We saw Khalil Herbert, our boy, go to the Bengals. A lot of people are like, ooh, should I pick him up? Should I drop blank? People are saying, should I drop Bigsby for Herbert? I'm going to just say this. No, but also yes, because all it is now is that Khalil Herbert, if something happens to Chase Brown, now you have potential RB2 or better. This is Chase Brown's backfield. I think Herbert will be sprinkled in more than Trevion Williams from last week. Like, I don't think we're looking at 90% every single week for Chase Brown. But I also don't think it's something to be like, uh-oh, Chase Brown time as a top 15 running back is done. The biggest reason I don't have Chase Brown as a rest of season top 15 running back, he's kind of more like 16, 17, 18, is because as we've talked about in the show, the Bengals schedule the rest of the season is pretty brutal, especially for the passing game, which is why, like, hey, I was saying, go trade Jamar Chase if you can. Trade high off Joe Burrow coming off that huge game. And of course, people are like, trade Joe Burrow after 5 touchdowns? Yes, because the schedule is terrible. Are you with me on this, or do you think Khalil Herbert's a bigger threat than I'm imposing here?
No, I'm in total agreement. We both, as you said earlier, like our guy, we both like him. I mean, I think he's a good back. I can't believe like a team like Dallas isn't willing to give up a 7th round pick for a guy like Khalil Herbert. It blows my mind. But yeah, I would
just giving up on the season. Although they have a trade, we'll talk about it.
They decided to give up a 4th. So yeah, I think the only thing, and I have to play this role, is that we haven't seen Chase Brown, handle this kind of workload. This is essentially his first full year getting these kind of touches. I do agree with you. It's his backfield. As long as he holds up, he should be good to go. Short week, Thursday. Ravens, I don't expect Herbert to really be all that involved. But, like, hey, it's the next man up. You're always talking about that. I think, with Zach Moss on IR, his season could be lost. So if Chase Brown does suffer some sort of injury, then you have a guy in Khalil Herbert all of a sudden, that you picked up off the waiver wire for a buck or two. It could fall into like 20 plus opportunities, but I agree with you. It's Chase Brown's backfield.
So are you on the same page of like dropping Tanks Bigsby is just chasing whichever person gets hurt first? Like exactly. With ETN back. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's Jacksonville. There's just like Dearness Johnson's there too, so like probably a little bit more crowded.
So would you take Herbert straight up over Bigsby at this point? Because one less option.
Yeah, I think if you're like needing somebody to start this week, it would be Bigsby, but not even expecting a whole lot from him. But I think.
Well, then let me ask you. Let me ask you this. So I had Laquan Jones on. We talked waivers, and I gave him 5 backup running backs. I said to pick his favorite, and this included Trey Benson, which we found out. I don't know if you listened to the podcast where you're off the show, Meaney, but we actually figured out who Santa Claus truly is. It's actually James Conner. That's why he disappears at the end of December every single year. It's not because he's actually hurt. It's because he's Santa Claus. So that's what we figured out. He wants Trey Benson. He would actually take Trey Benson over like who are some of the like Blake Corum,
Ray Davis, Braylon Allen.
Ray Davis, but like those. It was like he said Trey Benson because that. Here's the one thing that I did want to bring up, and we can kind of touch on this game real quickly. So I looked deeper into this, and I'm like, okay, Trey Benson got some touches. That was actually the 3rd game this year that James Conner hasn't hit 60, 70% or more. And I'm like, okay, what's the commonality? Here's the commonality. All the other games, they were close and in contention. They've had one blowout where they won and then 2 blowouts on the other side. And those are the games where James Conner's lost the touches. So to me, this is saying, let's keep James Conner healthy when we don't need him. I don't think this is necessarily a true Trey Benson threat to James Conner's workload.
Oh, I agree again. Yeah, and they got a couple divisional games coming up too. Like this division is completely up for grabs. And you're right, the Santa Claus references jokes, but yeah, they want to keep him healthy because he doesn't have a full season on his resume. But I looked at the schedule yesterday when we were doing the Sirius show, and there's some pivotal matchups coming up. I think they got the Seahawks twice. They're gonna have the Niners. They got some divisional games, and all of those teams inside the West, they're in it. So if you can keep a guy like James Conner fresh, you still have DeMarcado there too. Like he's still getting some touches as well. But I know the same thing. They're blowing out the Bears. There's no reason for Conner to be on the field in the 4th quarter.
All right, so let's talk Giants and Panthers. Bengals and Ravens. I mean, you're playing your Bengals and Ravens and know who to play. Also, this is going to be an interesting breaking point. I threw this into the com. The Bengals have allowed the lowest percentage of plays to go for 10-plus yards, which you would have thought not the Bengals. Like, of all teams, not the Bengals. But they've allowed the fewest 10-plus yard plays. The Ravens, the highest percentage. So something's going to break there. And I have a feeling it's going to be the Ravens side of that one. But Giants at Panthers, if Jonathan Brooks plays, do you start him in his first game against the Giants run defense, which is pretty favorable? Like RB2, too aggressive? Or is it RB3 knowing you might get top 15, you might get 5 touches?
Yeah, that's possible. But like, say we just talked about Tank Bigsby. I may, if I had the choice,
Brooks over Bigsby?
Yeah, roll out Brooks. Yeah. I mean, like this guy's going to get what? Maybe 5 to 7 touches. How many is Bigsby going to get? And he's not going to catch any passes. So Brooks may catch a couple passes. And we said before, like when he comes back, it's not going to be the Dave Canales, Rashad White treatment, especially off the significant injury. Maybe we see that type of workload next year. But I would just take the unknown
of Brooks. Yeah.
Brooks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. And then Jonathan Mingo was the trade we were talking about. Set for a 4th rounder. What the hell, Cowboys? Like, hey, every other organization out there, as frustrated as you could be, Panthers included, at least you're not the Cowboys. Let's just put it that way.
Crazy. I was really shocked to see that go down.
And for a 4th. Like,
right. I'm all for buying low on a young wide receiver that maybe you like, but a 4th round pick. I mean, think about Deontay Johnson. Didn't Hopkins go for a 4th? Deontay Johnson and or Hopkins and Deontay Johnson even go for a 4th. I think Adams went for a 4th, but yeah, pretty ridiculous. To be honest,
he ended up being almost essentially, if you're looking at record right now, essentially he was the highest cost pick right now.
And that's going to be like a high 4th for the Cowboys. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Thinking there. Yeah.
So Jalen Coker, are you stashing him? Like he was still behind David Moore last week, but the excitement for him now that Mingo's already but he was already past Mingo, so I'm still like, Coker's cool, but he's got to get past David Moore. Like,
yeah, I think Legette's the only guy I really want to start.
I'll be honest. Your tongue at this point.
I know. I'll be honest. Like Coker, I jumped on his prop. It was like 28.5. That's the only Coker I'm going to get involved with. It's this prop game. If it's like 2.5 catches and 28 yards.
No zero? Coker zero?
Yeah, maybe unders. Coker's area, good one. No, I think just like league at. Have they announced a starter yet in Carolina? I'm surprised Canales was kind of on the fence about that on Monday, despite the fact that Bryce Young just won him a football game.
No, because Canales thinks he's tricking everybody by not announcing if it's Andy Dalton or Bryce Young. Like this is
gotta be.
We're trying to like it's like we're the Giants are over there. Like, oh my God, are they starting Lamar Jackson or Tom Brady? I don't know what to do.
Holy crap, our game plan is going to be so screwed here. You know, Andy Dalton versus Bryce Young. We got to prepare for both. But yeah, no, Lee gets the only guy. I really do like Jatavian Sanders, but I just don't think there's enough there.
So let's talk Patriots and Bears because I do want to talk Caleb Williams here. And we talked about him last week. I talked about him on the waiver show. I continue to say the same thing about him. It was the soft schedule because Caleb Williams, with pressure in his face, is bad. So when he's under pressure, you want to know how bad his completion percentage is? 46%. That's 25th.
That's sub 50.
Yeah, touchdown per attempt percentage, 1.6. That's 30th. Out of 41 quarterbacks. So there are 11 behind him, but some of those 11 are names where you're like, Tim Boyle. Okay, cool. I would hope you're better than Tim Boyle. So it's bad. Fortunately, he doesn't have to worry about this, but after the Patriots game, it's really, really, really bad. A single quarterback league, are you done? I don't want to say wasting a bench spot on him, but are you done for the fact of like, hey, Khalil Herbert trade, other running backs as thin as it is right now. We're talking about Ray Davis, who's one of the hottest pickups this week because of what he just did. But let's be honest, Ray Davis is still only truly a value if James Cook gets hurt. Like you can't start him,
right.
Like unless you're desperate, which we do have Week 14 coming, and people might be desperate at that point. But in the fact of you're stashing wide receivers, you're stashing. Hey, there's one. Would you drop Caleb Williams to stash Jalen Coker?
Yeah, I mean, I'm done with Williams. I told you that.
Okay.
So you could have said anyone. I'm sure there'll be some nice moments for him.
He's got the better schedule.
Quarterback. Yeah, okay. Sure. Daniel Jones going to run a little bit, but yeah, I'm. It's not all on him. You're right. We talked about him a lot on Sirius about like his anticipation throws. He's too hesitant. The line's not helping him out. Don't love the schedule. Nah, I'm done with Caleb Williams. Even in Superflex leagues, I see where you have him ranked. We were talking about how low we can get this guy. I'm kind of right there with you. This is just like a couple quarterbacks behind him, and that's it. Like. Yeah, even Bo Nix against Casey. I agree with you. I'd play him over Caleb.
I don't know. I keep going back and forth on that one because it's like Kansas City. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, Caleb Williams did do well against soft teams, and the Patriots are a soft team. So I'm going to wait. This is a projections one if Caleb Williams slides in front of Bo Nix, but we're talking about the 20s. Put it that way. Not overly excited about this one. So Bills at Colts, Joe Flacco. I know everybody who is wanting to call this the stupidest move of the season is victory lapping right now because Joe Flacco had a bad game, but that's not so much what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fact it's the Bills' defense for the Colts. So whether it was Flacco or not, coming off a good game, would you still have reservations about Josh Downs? He is the leading option. Josh Downs, almost 29% of the team's targets with Joe Flacco and Michael Pittman, all three of them on the field. So this is including Pittman. This is all three on the field, every single snap. Not by drives or anything like that, actual snaps. So if Michael Pittman comes off and Downs and Flacco are on the field, that doesn't count in these numbers. I wanted to see the numbers of all three together. 29% of the team's targets. Michael Pittman's still at 17. But are you saying Josh Downs versus the Bills, a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3 for you? Because I feel like the matchup might push him into the 3.
Yeah, I think he's probably a low end 2, high end 3. Yeah, it was very interesting to see. I think it was just a situation against the Vikings where they ran a little bit more 12 than 11. I think they're typically more an 11 personnel type of squad. But the encouraging thing is, to your point, every time Downs is out there, he was essentially involved in the offense with targets. So even though, you know, his snaps and his routes were down overall, he was involved in the offense when he was on the field. So I thought that was very encouraging. And you said it last week. I said it on Sirius. He's a splits tool. You could just see a boost in usage when it's Flacco under center. So tough spot, man. Like, why is everyone so hard on Flacco against the Vikings? Like, you know how many good quarterbacks have been awful against the Vikings this year?
They're susceptible against the pass. I think that's why. I think that's just, I mean,
sure.
So,
but I mean,
all right, well,
let me
ask you this. Let me ask you the same game then. Would you go Josh Downs or Keon Coleman on the other side, assuming that the wrist is okay? Because that was part of the conversation for last week, is that it wasn't. Coleman has the better matchup, and Coleman had been coming off 2 really good games. gets the matchup on this other side. Again, assuming the rest is okay, but we're also, as of today, assuming Amari Cooper will play this week. So it's a lot of assumptions being made. But let's say Coleman plays, Cooper plays. Would you go Coleman or Josh Downs specifically because of this week's matchups for both?
I think I would go Downs. I have him ahead of Coleman just slightly. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I think
I'm
both
buying
guys
low on
are
Keon
good
Coleman in
plays.
general if I can.
Yeah, just off of recency bias and the fact that Cooper's still there. Yeah, I'm with
like
you
it
on
just
that
went
one.
so quick. Like people went from, oh my God, top 20. Look how amazing he is. Cooper's only helping him to has a bad game, 3 targets, banged up his wrist without Amari Cooper. And all of a sudden people are like, well, Keon Coleman sucks. So like it's done. That was fun.
And one thing that we can say and give you your flowers is like Shakir's a thing. Like he's
not
probably
going
going to
away.
be the most
His role
consistent
stands.
bill. Yeah, he's going to be the most consistent bill throughout the entire year. And if you have him in, I think in a PPR league, you know, you can kind of expect double-digit fantasy points from him every week, like maybe at least a 5 for 50 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that like Shakir, I said he's just going to be a consistent wide receiver 3 or 4, and I say 3 or 4 because non-PPR he's a 4, full PPR he's a 3, and then half
that's touchdowns, right? Like Coleman's got that touchdown upside clearly.
By the way, if you would have told me this going into the season, and like a little dog crumb, that's in case you were watching the video. James Cook, just as a fun number, 10 goal-to-go rush attempts and 5 goal line rush attempts so far this year. He had 12 and 5 all of last year. I would have not joked with you as much as the rushing touchdown prop if that I knew that this is already week 10 and he's already eclipsed. Well, not eclipsed. He's got equal goal line and he's probably about to eclipse goal-to-go soon.
Which is amazing. And I haven't really looked at Josh Allen's goal line numbers, but dude has 3 rushing touchdowns, right? Like that's the guy who had 15 last year. So they're really scaling back from Josh Allen's work.
See, and that was
Jalen Hurts has the 8 rushing touchdowns, but these guys both had 15 last year.
So to pull in the Ray Davis thing, as good as he's been, I don't know if Ray Davis gets the same James Cook treatment. And that was just crazy to say. Like, I think if James Cook got hurt, I think they'd be less inclined to trust Ray Davis because they've gotten to the point where James Cook forced their hand to trust him.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, just speculation. I don't know. Maybe they will. Broncos at Chiefs. You brought up Bo Nix. Holy crap. Not only faceplant, we already talked about faceplanted against the Ravens. I would expect probably similar in Kansas City to boot on top of it. Here's the interesting thing. Can you play Courtland Sutton? Because he's 2 games in a row. Courtland Sutton's back, but he's got the Chiefs this week.
I would.
Because you can pass on the Ravens. You can't really pass too much on the Chiefs, depending on who you are. Like I say, some teams can,
and especially at Arrowhead, right? I would say, like as a flex play, like the volume is encouraging, right? I mean, the 21 targets in the last 2 games and the 15 grabs, it's really encouraging, and he has for the most part been a target hog. He's got 9+ targets in 5 games this season. So I think the upside is kind of capped there, but it's more of a flex play for me.
See, and that's what. So my answer is somebody asked. I forget who it was. Oh, was it Quentin Johnston? So I want to say it was, but I'll just throw it out anyway. It was Quentin Johnston versus dropping him for Courtland Sutton. I feel like that was the range. It was kind of that similar player. It's like, this is kind of the running back answer. It's the same person. Like, it's the same wide receiver 4s, what are wide receiver 4s inherently? Unless you're talking full point PPR, Wendell Robinsons and Parker Washingtons with no Gabe Davis and Ray McLeods of the world. Like, unless you're talking about those guys, Demario Douglas, those guys are wide receiver 4s in full point PPR only. The majority, 90% of the wide receiver 4s we're talking about are, you could get 3 for 80 and a touchdown. You might get 1 for 14. Like, that's who they are. This is what you have to live with. So I'm taking Quentin Johnston over Sutton.
Yeah, I think he's scoring some touchdowns. I think, when you're splitting hairs too, I think you got to kind of ask yourself that too. And the volume, like I would play Quentin over him. I would play Sutton over DJ Moore. That's kind of where I'm at with the Bears offense right now.
Even against the Patriots?
I'd be like, because I know that I just have a feeling that Sutton's going to get like 8 to 10 targets. I don't know how involved DJ Moore is going to be. And you still have Keenan and Roma Dunze's trending up. I think he's past Keenan a little bit here. Well,
you know why Roma Dunze is trending up, right? Because I just traded him away in my home league. That's why. That
makes sense.
I went for a team that's playing for next year, and I picked off Chase and Neighbors for him. It's an auction league, and I sent all to this. I'm about to tell you, I'll save the last person for last, or my favorite person for last, because it legit broke my heart. Like I legitimately did not want to make this deal. So it was Roma Dunze. Who was the second one? Because the other person actually went off and the other person didn't. What the hell? Oh, Garrett Wilson. Because Garrett Wilson was only in the teens. He was actually almost $10 cheaper than Malik Neighbors because, of course, people paid up knowing Malik Neighbors' potential. So anyway, chasing Neighbors. I still got the better deal, but you'll see why. Dunze, Garrett Wilson, which I wish I had back, and then Brian Thomas. Because, well, here's why. Because Malik Neighbors went for 24 in our draft. Brian Thomas went for 20 because everybody reads my stuff in my league, brings my stuff to the draft, and forced me to pay up for Brian Thomas. And I was like, I'm not like Malik Neighbors went. Roma Dunze, I wasn't going to pay up for, you know that. Marvin Harrison went for almost 30, and I was like, so my guy, knowing he was going to be the cheapest of the four, they still pushed me up to 20 because they knew I was not going to leave that draft without Brian Thomas. So anyway, those were the three that I gave up, and it's still like, I lost this week. You want to know why I lost this week, Chris Meaney? Because Puka Nacua decided to throw a punch at a dude in a helmet in the first quarter.
Man, Puka, what were you thinking, man? Stupid.
Anyway. Sorry, it was just a sidebar here.
Interesting trade. A lot of nice pieces involved in that deal, that's for sure.
Oh, well, the last not nice piece, it's a super flex. Daniel Jones was $4, and the other part was Tua. Tua was 20 something. So that was the other part of it. I don't think that Daniel Jones is the quarterback next year, but
you never know, man. Giants probably double down, triple down.
Oh, my God. If Drake London is out for the Falcons-Saints game, Darnell Mooney, we know, is a must-start. I bring out Ray McLeod to say that I think he's in the Wandale Robinson, like you probably start him. Here's where I wanted to go on this one. It's the Saints. And I'm laughing because I feel bad for Saints fans. Although I don't feel like I run into a lot of Saints fans. Are did they never leave New Orleans? Or New Orleans?
I'm actually going to find out. I'm in New Orleans this weekend for a wedding and for the game.
Are you really?
So... yeah, I'm actually going to be at the
your
LSU
first time
game on Saturday, too. Yeah, I've never been there. I've never been down
You're
that
going
way.
to an LSU game, too?
Yeah, LSU Bama, which
Holy
to me
crap.
is like bucket list.
I want to go to a top 25 game in college.
Yeah, I've never even been to a college football game. I can't wait for that experience, and I think that the next day is going to be a complete letdown, Falcons and Saints. But I don't know. I don't know too many Saints fans. I'm sure there may be some excitement in the building with Allen fired, but I don't know. I'm more excited about Bama and LSU, even though it sounds
you
like
should be.
Yeah,
easily.
A lot of rain. It should be fun.
Holy crap. I'm so jealous of you right now. So, okay. Saints, Marquez, Valquez, Scantling. So I actually think he's the next man up because I looked at this.
Too.
Okay, because Mason Tipton led by far in this game, with obviously Chris Olave getting hurt. But he didn't catch any of his 3 targets, despite leading this round. 3 targets, by the way. And MVS, his first game, he was already 3rd. And that was actually his first active game. He wasn't active the week before. First active game with the Saints after being picked up off the street by the Saints. Now, I'm not saying start MVS. I'm not saying go pick him off on waivers and go crazy. But as a wide receiver 4/5, I'm trying to think. Would you rather roll out Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Darius Slayton against the Panthers? I think they're kind of in the same bucket.
They are, and I think what we're going to see is what we saw earlier in the year with Derek Carr taking deep shots down the field to Rashid.
And who's the deep shot guy?
Exactly. I'm telling you, I don't know. It's crazy that it's come to this, but the Saints don't have anybody else on their roster.
You know what the crazy thing was? You know what this is going to be? Watch MVS be like a league winner the rest of the way. This is good. So Jay Felicio was texting me yesterday, and he remember. Do you remember? I don't see if you remember the name. I don't know. You might have saw the tweet too, so that you might get to cheat. Oh, you didn't see the tweet? Do you remember the running back that they picked up off the street that hadn't played in over 2 years, and for the final 4 games, he was the RB2? Yeah, the Saints. It was way back in 2014.
Is it like Pierre? Is it Pierre?
No, it was Pierre Thomas. It wasn't Pierre Thomas.
No.
His first name is 3 letters, real short. Tim. Does that give you? It's Tim.
No,
what is a really big building? Does that help as a clue? If we were playing what's that game where you can't say the certain words? Taboo. If we were playing Taboo.
Taboo's great.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I'll call Valenciano's Empire State.
Not low, but come on, not low, but
high.
There you go. Okay, and like
Hightower.
There you go. See?
Wow.
Yay, Taboo. Maybe we have to play Taboo on the show going forward. Tim Hightower. He balled out.
He did ball out, man.
Off the damn street.
That name for a long time, clearly. Wow. Yeah, listen.
It's not going to be that good.
It's not going to be that good, but I think you will see some shots down the field.
It was 2015.
Yeah, kind of what they want to play. I felt like it was much longer than that.
So it's 2015. Do you want to, like, here's this game log in the final 4 games.
Give me a couple of games from Tim Hightower.
Like, legit off the street. Like, this dude, real quick, I know this, but Tim Hightower played in 2011 for the Washington, not Commanders at the time, 5 games. That was coming off his first 3 seasons with the Cardinals. And then 2015, 4 years later, he's picked up off the street. He doesn't even play a game until week 9 and didn't even get a touch in that game. Got 11 for 46 in week 10 against Washington. Funny enough. Revenge! That's why. Nothing in 11 or 12. And then here's 13, 14, 15, 16, which is your entire playoffs and championship run. 28 for 85 and a touchdown. 13 for 54 and 3 for 31 in the receiving game, which is actually his worst game, because at the end he goes 27 for 122 and 2 touchdowns with 3 for 47 receiving, and 16 for 66 with a touchdown and 5 for 41 receiving against the Falcons in your championship game. The dude was he was the RB2 in just over those final 4 games.
And his league winner, right? You pick up somebody like that, it's you're just hoping for, he's like probably a spot start for you. Yeah, maybe it just gets me a couple points, and then all of a sudden you ride this guy out. You have me looking up Marquez Valdez-Scantling props. There's nothing out there just yet, but 6-1 for a touchdown. Like I just know that the way that they run their offense, play action, right?
Yards, whatever they are.
Yeah, it would probably be, they're not out, but it would probably be in the mid 20s or something, or low 30s. But yeah, that's the way that Kubiak, they want to run play action. That's what they did when they were healthy. Run the ball with Kamara, take some shots down the field, and I guess MVS is the new Shaheed for Derek Carr.
That's going to be, if he turns into even top 30, it's going to be insane. Let's talk, because we have a choose your adventure situation here. If Christian McCaffrey is back, it's as simple as you just play him, right? I'll give you this. I have 8 names in front of him off his first game, just because maybe his first game's only 50%, but still 50%, he's still in the top 10. Barkley, Henry, Kyron, Bijan, Achane, Mixon, Kamara, Brees. Those are the only names that, like, if somehow you have 2 of them, this is the only world I would consider benching Christian McCaffrey. And even then, I would hate to do it. I'd find a way. Life finds a way. In the other conversation, if there is no Christian McCaffrey and it's Jordan Mason time, is Jordan Mason an RB1 with the threat of Isaac Guerrero eating into his workload after we saw how good Guerrero? By the way, I will victory lap that one. Told everybody he was a perfect fit for the 49ers.
Oh, yeah.
Is Mason an RB1, or would you slide Mason further down behind like James Cook or even Tyrone Tracy against the Panthers?
Yeah, I would slide him down. I think, I don't know if he's hitting some sort of wall, but his last 3 games haven't been great. He's been dealing with the shoulder injury. Guerrero, to your point, man, I have him in a lot of dynasty leagues as a 4th-round pick. So thank you for pumping his tires in the offseason. But yeah, I'm looking at your rankings. I would probably play Tracy Jr. ahead of him. Like, he's getting the touches, and the matchup is the best possible spot. So I think he'd be right in the mid-teens there for me.
Okay. Steelers, Commanders, I do want to talk. Their trade for the Commanders, obviously Lattimore on the other side. Hopefully he even plays for them. I know he's been dealing with an injury. Might be a Devontae Adams type injury where it's like an injury, quote unquote. I know. The Steelers did make a trade, and the Steelers did bring in Mike Williams. But it's the Steelers. If anybody doesn't know, in the 2 Russell Wilson games, 29 and 28 pass attempts. If anybody doesn't know, Pat Freiermuth is dealing with Darnell Washington over the last 2 games, so much so that Arthur Smith is rearing his ugly head as expected, which is why I say Mike Williams, like Courtland Sutton over Mike Williams. Yes. How far are we going with this? Like, is Parker Washington over Mike Williams if you're stashing somebody? Like, is that how far we're going? Because I just don't know. Like, if you even gave Mike Williams all of Van Jefferson's share and a portion of Calvin Austin's and maybe even a portion of the tight ends, then maybe we finally get to wide receiver 4 value. But that's so tough to get to.
He's going to be touchdown dependent. Yeah, he's not going to be
touchdown
consistent.
Or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what you have to hope for, that he's not going to get more targets than George Pickens. They're a run first team. The rush percentages, it's them, Philly, and Baltimore is the top 3 run heavy teams in the league, over 50%. I'm with you. I had Calvin Austin in like a 14 team PPR, like expecting to get 5 or 6 points. Like I'd say the touchdown upside is higher for Mike Williams, but he can't separate. I think they needed like a separator inside the wide receiver room. He's just gonna be touchdown dependent.
And that's what they got Calvin Austin for.
Just
Vikings,
throw to George Pickens, Russ. Throw to Pickens.
Just nobody else. Vikings at Jaguars. I do have TJ Hawkinson as a tight end 1, even after the disappointment from last week, but I don't know why Josh Oliver was involved late, but against the Jaguars, I think that even helps, even if he's still only at 65%. Do you think Gabe Davis... I do, by the way. Do you think Gabe Davis is a decent wide receiver 4 gamble if he plays in this game? Because, again, the Vikings' pass defense is acceptable, and obviously the Jaguars, they're probably going to need to pass against the Vikings.
Yeah, I would say he's, leapfrog Washington in terms of targets. If he's healthy, right? He's going to be the guy after Ingram and Brian Thomas. So I think let
me give you a toss-up.
I thought he would have been a good flyer last week, but he didn't play.
Assuming Gabe Davis plays, would you take the flyer on him or Quentin Johnston against the Titans in what could be a slower, less pass-happy game?
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. 2 teams that want to run the football and slow the pace down. I'd probably take Gabe, just knowing that the Jags they're not going to have any success running the football. They're going to have to throw. But it has been really ugly. I mean, they had 23 yards of offense in the first half last week before they came back and made a game of it in the second half.
Yeah, for the Titans, by the way, speaking of that game, I actually kind of hope for their sake, for their offense's sake, is that Mason Rudolph is under center because the Chargers have the 3rd highest sack percentage and percentage, not sack number, but percentage, because you have to incorporate, of course, dropbacks, all that type of stuff. But 3rd highest. Will Levis actually has the 4th highest for quarterbacks alone, but Mason Rudolph is all the way down at 4.1%. Is all the time he gets sacked. He just works the pocket better. So I say all that to say, if Will Levis is under center, this might be full panic mode for all the Titans players, like Calvin Ridley included.
Absolutely. It's been, if you've been watching, Will Levis under center hasn't been good.
Will Levis is full panic mode.
Absolutely. He is.
Jokes.
So yeah, Westbrook Akini, does he have a touchdown like 4 straight games? What's going on there? I mean, I'm not starting this guy, but
he does. Do you know what his yards are in those games? Like,
oh yeah, like
9, 13.
His touchdown compended. Like, this guy just gets targeted inside the red zone. It's really it. But yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not starting him, but I just thought it was interesting to see him pop up in the box score over the last month.
That is true. So you want to talk about the FTN tool with your splits? I do want to talk about the Eagles Cowboys because this is really interesting. This sounds like AJ Brown is completely okay. It sounds like it. But just in case, Jalen Hurts, 3 more passes per game without A.J. Brown over the past 2 years. Or 3 seasons. The past 3 seasons, anytime A.J. Brown's not been on the field, he's actually attempted 3 more passes in the game. But his touchdowns go from 1.4 to 0.8. His fantasy points per game go from 23.8 to 17.4. So more volume, way less efficiency. Here's the interesting thing. Devonta Smith, though. Without A.J. Brown over the last 3 seasons, he goes from 7 targets to 10.7, 5.2 receptions to 7.3, 68.1 receiving yards to an average of 101 receiving yards and 12 points per game to 15.8 over the last 3 seasons. If A.J. Brown is out, Devonta Smith is a smash wide receiver 1? Question mark?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He, with no disrespect to AJ, but like Devontae is my favorite Eagles wide receiver. He's so smooth with his route running ability. And I know that AJ is just a beast and after the catch, and he's so physical and so strong. But what Devontae does in the field and finding those open spaces, he's terrific. And he's probably one of the better 2s across the NFL. But I'd say that they just run, use Devontae. And I would, if I'm the Eagles with Washington coming up on Thursday, AJ would be limited, even if he is active and playing. Yeah, I'd ask him like, listen, you want to sit this one out? You want to get an extra couple days, or be active and play?
I just ask him
a little bit.
Well, you know, he's such an opposing. I know, but he's such an opposing man. I was just like picturing it, like, hey AJ, you feel like sitting?
I could just see it. Sirianni's just a weird dude. I could see like the way he went up to Saquon, like, listen, you're like 13 yards away from your record. Do you want to get out there? I could see a scenario where, like, man, we kind of want you fully healthy for Thursday night against Washington. But anyways, if he does play,
so it'd be more like, hey,
but
AJ,
I think he'll be limited.
Feel like taking the day off?
Yeah, we got this. Maybe we'll run the football here nonstop with all the backs, and we'll have you full go Thursday. You
know who doesn't got this? The Cowboys. Cooper Rush is at quarterback. 1, 2. This isn't the Cooper. I don't know how many times, like, people are like, oh, here's Cooper Rush's numbers and CeeDee Lamb's from 2022. 2022 was a contending, as in they were, not surprisingly, lost in the playoffs, but that was a contending team. That was a team that people thought could be a Super Bowl team. Go look at that team. Look at the offensive line. Look at Tony Pollard in that backfield with Ezekiel Elliott still having burst. Look at the fact of down that depth chart at wide receiver. Like, they had weapons across the board and a good defense. This is not the same Cowboys. I have CeeDee Lamb barely as a wide receiver too, because what I've been talking about it's your Eagles, but this secondary has been so good. I actually looked and I was like, you know what? I feel like they have turned the corner. Let's look up the last 4 weeks since their bye. 10.7 fantasy points per game to wide receivers combined. All wide receivers. That is tops in the league. Now, again, people are like, well, they face some junk teams. To a degree, Browns, Giants, Bengals, Jaguars. There is talent across all those teams. And yes, Jaguars, Giants, Browns, that was actually still Deshaun Watson. Super. But at the same time, it's not like those teams haven't showed up against other teams. And like against, if the Jaguars were facing themselves. So I'm saying all that to say is, like, yeah, against better teams, they're probably middle of the pack, but at worst, I feel like they're middle of the pack, which is why I have CeeDee Lamb, long story short, as a fringe wide receiver too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Quinion Mitchell and even Cooper DeJean are playing well, and not just that. Like, you're starting to see some of these Bulldogs that were drafted a couple years ago, like Nakobe Dean, Will Smith, Jalen Carter. These guys are getting pressure on the quarterback, and you know it's helping the secondary. So I wasn't thrilled with how things started with Vic Fangio's defense, but it seems like now he's got something going on there, and that's, you know, without Slay playing. So Quinion has taken the top wide receiver for the past couple of weeks. So yeah, defense is playing good, but again, another week where you're right. People will say, well, you know, went up against a brutal quarterback. Cooper Rush, I remember him playing against the Eagles in that game in 2022, and he had like 3 picks, and I just thought he looked awful. But you're right. The offensive line is not the same.
All right, well then let's talk 3 more games before we quickly get out of here. Marvin Harrison has been a super disappointment this year. Is 28 too high or too low when I throw this at you? Because I have him at 28 right now, and I almost feel like he should be lower when I throw out my own stats against me. The Jets force the highest 3 and out in the league. They force 3 and out 40.6% of the time. The Cardinals go 3 and out 11th most. Only the Browns have a higher pressure percentage against quarterbacks than the Jets. And Kyler Murray, 10 yards per completion when he's under pressure. That's 34th out of 41 quarterbacks. Should Marvin Harrison be low when you hear those numbers? Lower.
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe a little bit. I think so, man. Those aren't very encouraging numbers for Arizona's offense.
Marvin Harrison or Courtland Sutton?
I think I would go Sutton.
How insane is that you pause that? Well, like,
crazy though.
Even if you would have answered Harrison. I know.
It does. Like, Marvin Harrison's so talented, but it's too inconsistent. We've seen it now. This is week 10. There's too many highs and lows. You just talked about the matchup with the Jets and the secondary. Yeah, man. Even like Khalil Shakir, I would take the. I know it's a low ceiling.
How about our boy Leggett or Marvin Harrison? Leggett against the Giants with Bryce Young.
I think I would play Leggett.
Oh wow!
I know it's brutal to think about. I think that would be the advice that I would give. I think me personally, I would I know it's two different things. It's just like it would be really tough to sit Marvin Harrison Jr., but you're just doing this week in and week out. It's like, okay, I'm playing him because I drafted him where I drafted him. I see the upside, I see the ceiling, but it's not a good spot this week.
If his name was Marvin Jones, we wouldn't be thinking about it.
What would we be doing? Yeah, we would be calling him Gabe Davis. He's got like 4 good games with touchdowns and other ones where he's just not really involved.
You're not wrong. We'd be calling him, hell, this year's Tank Dell, because let's talk about this year's Tank Dell against the Lions. Nico Collins sounded like he might play, and then we got this weird, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, where like that sounded ominous. That sounded like we're not even talking this week or next.
I would be looking, but at the same time, I thought that was a possibility, but then they didn't do anything. I thought that maybe would bring in another wide receiver like Slayton, like somebody, some depth piece to bring in. But if you're a Nico Collins owner, I don't think he'll play this week. I think he should have a plan in place.
But are you concerned past that? Because it almost sounded like
yeah, absolutely. Even on Monday, they were talking about how they were going to reevaluate him throughout the week, and it's just like that's not encouraging.
No, it wasn't. And then the Lions, Texans, I mean, everybody else in that game. So real quick before we get this, I originally had C.J. Stroud as a buy low in the waiver column because people aren't even starting C.J. Stroud at this point. Would you buy low after because that was before the Nico Collins Tuesday? Ooh, that doesn't sound really good. Would that change your opinion, or would you still try to buy low just because what if maybe it takes 3 more weeks, but then you get them because they also have the week 14 bye on top of that?
Yeah, I don't think I'm interested, man, just given the quartgive that are out there. I don't mind
Aaron Rodgers,
obviously.
Aaron Rodgers or CJ Stroud rest of the way. Rodgers? Okay.
Yeah. Just give me Rodgers with those 2 wideouts that he has. Kind of seems like it's working for him at the moment.
Okay. And Dolphins Rams, you want an insane number? How about this one?
Yes.
Last year, everybody remembers the touchdowns per drive for the Dolphins. It was second best in the league, only behind the Lions, 30.6. This year, it's 14.0, which is 3rd worst. Here's the crazy part about it. That's with Tua. The games without Tua, it was 3.5. So this isn't just like, it's because, no, even with Tua, it's been only 14, which is 3rd worst. So here's where I'm going with this. I think Raheem Mostert has fallen into you can't even start him because outside of his game, week 5 when he came in for Achane with the concussion, he's never had more than 32% of the touches, and he's only had touchdowns in 1 game. And now that wasn't the week 5 game, but I mean, I think Mostert unfortunately is kind of fallen into he's a high end backup now.
Yeah, and another guy that's just like touchdown dependent. I think if you play him, you're playing him as a flex, you're hurting at running back, and you just hope that he gets a couple touches in the red zone and he scores. I think there's an opportunity for 2 of these next 2 weeks, like Rams and Raiders. But, at Green Bay, week 13, what's the weather like then? Jets, at Texans, team that can get some pressure. And then the Niners, week 16, followed by week 17 at Cleveland. So your time's running out, I think, for Tua to turn this thing around.
No, I'm with you on that one, and I know Meaney would be with me. I did my top 25 because I was like, I'll do 10, and I couldn't stop. And then I'm like, I'll stop at 20. I'm like, no, I got a few more I still need to get in here. Top 25 16-bit video games, and number 4 is the greatest NHL game of all time, NHL 94, where you could still fight, which is the best part about it.
NHL 94 is the best. A couple years ago, when I think it was NHL 20 came out or 22, they also had included the 94. Yeah, so you can go back and play it if you didn't have it. But
I wonder how many people played that more than the actual whatever game that was.
I'd say there's a few people. I mean, it was the best. Still looking back, it's like one of the better hockey games. It's like Madden was always great, but I think about the year. I think it was 04 with the 2K, 04 with TO on the cover. Yeah, like that one. Yeah. That was like the year. It's like whoa, like this is the game, right?
That was 2K.
Sticks to me too.
Was it 2K7? 2007 was the 2K one. I forget. I don't remember.
I thought it was 04 with TO.
Was it 4?
I thought it was Owens on the cover. Yeah, but I'm not sure. 24.
All I know is I remember also in NHL 94, the first thing I would always do is I would take my Rangers, but then I would trade Roenick and Madonna onto the Rangers every single time. Those were my guys back then. I don't know. Like nice. I always had a spot for Roenick was actually one of my favorite non-Rangers players, and then I don't remember why. I don't remember. Madonna was always one of my favorites too. I don't remember why though.
Probably two American greats. Those guys, at the Olympics and World Cup of Hockey, they were kind of the face of Team USA. I love Mikey Mo. It was.
We're still kind of young though in '94. If we're like kind of like youngish.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then that's a good year for you too. The Rangers win the Cup in '94. But yeah, those. Those Americans were. Those guys are two of the best American players of all time.
Yeah, and then you could fight, like I said, and you could fight if you want to in the NFL and the NHL. But please take the damn helmet off first before you start throwing punches if you're gonna fight. And please follow Chris Meaney at Chris Meaney. And yeah, check out his hockey picks because of always, just like NBA Jam, they're on fire. And we'll be back. Nice. Yeah, you like that for a transition? I'm still talking. I don't even know why. Cut me off.